not necessarily tribal or regional.
Welcome back to Daybreak on Trust TV, coming to you live from our studio here in the nation's capital. And right now we'll head on to read, what the newspapers are saying this morning. I will start with Daily Trust as usual. Below the mast there, it says diphtheria, Nigeria records 80 deaths in 7 states, FCT says NCDC. You find this on page 3. 1.5 million girls enrolled in 6 northern states school in 10 years, according to UNICEF. Dollar videos, APC kicks as anti-graft agency summons Ganduje. This story you find on page 3, and the top story there says Tinubu suspends 5% telecom, vehicle import taxes, and others. Issues 4 executive orders, the first Finance Act. Others would moderate inflation, MAN and others. Center seeks electricity tariff and food price regulation. Now, all the stories you'd find on page 4. And there's a pictorial of traders at a maize market in Papi, Abuja yesterday. Below the pictorial there, it says scramble for committees hot up as Akpabio Abbas compile list. At the bottom there, it says police to play football match with repentant thugs in Kano. Okay, a really interesting story there. INEC files charges against suspended Adamawa Rec, and Senate probes Abuja Kano Airport concession by Buhari's government. Now, these are some of the stories on Daily Trust newspaper today.
All right, let's take a look at more stories. We go to the Punch newspaper now. The lead story here talks about rising inflation. Private sector demands more waivers as Tinubu suspends taxes. Vehicle import, telecom, manufactured goods taxes blocked via 4 executive orders. Manufacturers, telcos welcome relief. Federal government says suspension to alleviate hardship. Now we also have at the bottom there, federal government promises to tackle military equipment shortage, poor funding. And there's pictorial there of the Chief of Air Staff, AVM Hassan Abubakar, a Chief of Naval Staff, Chief of Defense Staff, and the Vice President, Kashim Shatima. Now we also have at top of the page there, Tinubu, 30 million others join Zuckerberg's threads. We also have NNPCL plans another $8 billion international gas pipeline. Money laundering. CBN places Cameroon, Vietnam, Croatia on watch list. On the bottom of the page there, police dismiss Lagos cop linked to missing baby after Punch report. Falcons protest cancelled bonuses, threaten to boycott World Cup. Emir's ban on Ishese, a crime against cultural heritage, says Shoyinka. And these are some of the stories on the Punch newspaper.
All right, we'll move to the Guardian newspaper this morning. The lead story there says advocacy for pay on death law heightens as unclaimed funds near 1.3 trillion naira. That's a big story there you'll find on page 4 and 5. There's a pictorial below that, and it says assets declaration. Court grants Abba-Kyari 50 million naira bail. Temporary relief as Tinubu the first suspends Buhari's 11th hour tax drive. At the bottom there it says Kano Anti-Graft Agency invites Ganduje for questioning. The top of the newspaper there says at 40 the Guardian continues to influence the government's policies. Abiodun Osoba. Nigerians 33 trillion naira stock market undervalued, trading at discount. Fuel subsidy. Doctors want a 550% salary increase. Threatened strike July 19th. Now, these are some of the stories in the Guardian today.
All right, let's take a look quickly at the Nation newspaper. We have the lead story that talks about, the same story every other newspaper is taking. And then why president is meeting opposition figures by Alake. Ministers list not ready. Now banks abandon uniform ATMs, OTC transaction policy. At the top of the page there, INEC files 6 counts charge against Adamawa Erek. Chidoka urges Mesoma to come clean. Ex-minister ready to plead. Now, we have UTME top performer gets varsity scholarship. And these are some of the stories on The Nation.
All right, we'll move to the Blueprint newspaper. Nine logistics suppliers, 967 surrender. Olu of Warri Stool, Ayiri suspension as Olubutseri done in error, says Emiko. The lead story there says NPC to Tinubu, we need additional 225.2 billion naira for national census. Entire exercise estimated to cost 546.72 billion naira. President pledges support, seeks prudence, data integrity. Below that is a pictorial of a collation of civil society organization and political parties of good governance for Tinubu Shetima during their peaceful walk to the European Union office to protest the recent reports released against the victory of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu in Abuja on Thursday. Below that, there's after 18 months in prison, courts grants, of course, Abakari 50 million naira bill. 2023 Cuba, INEC drags Adamawa Rec to court over misconduct. Abuja Airport raises toll gate fare despite park and pay. And kudos as Tinubu signs 4 executive orders, suspends 5% tax on telecom. Now, these are some of the stories on the Blueprint newspaper today.
All right, let's move on to the Vanguard newspaper. From the top there, CBN warns banks over Russia, Iran, Cameroon transactions. We also have FG confirms 789 diphtheria cases, 80 deaths in 8 states. A really sad one there. Now, sit at home. Security operatives in show of force, beef up security. Police presence increases in Enugu. We won't tolerate any breach of peace in Abia. And we also have more stories here. A student loan. Don't hike tuition fees. Reps warn tertiary institutions. And on electricity, manufacturers kick against use of $155 million World Bank loan for meter import. And on insecurity, troops kill 51 terrorists, bandits, ESN militants in firefights. These are some of the stories on Vanguard.
All right, let's move to the Business Day newspaper. From the top there, it says Naira windfall for oil firms as CBN lifts dollar restrictions. The lead story there says Tinubu eases throttle on taxes, charges on vehicle bears, phone calls, others on hold. Beside that, you'll see why banks' bad loans declined to 7-year low. MBS unemployment reports faces further delay for after 2 years hiatus. Tinubu's reforms seen moving economic outlook back to stable. Business Day CEO Forum 2023 to focus on charting group paths. Now, these are some of the stories on the Business Day newspaper today.
All right, Nigerian Tribune here has Nigeria missing among 12 African countries to benefit from malaria vaccine. Wonder why that is. And I also have Osun civil servants walk out on consultants handling staff audits. Now we also have court grants Abakari 50 million naira bail after 18 months in prison. And Senate set to probe concession of airports. And these are some of the stories on Nigerian Tribune. All right, with that, we'll move on to more papers.
All right, now let's move to the Leadership newspaper today. Below the Mazda, it says dollar video, Kano Anti-Corrupt Commission invites Ganduje. Beside that, we see media reports on ministerial list fake news, says presidency. The major story there says a respite for businesses as Tinubu moves to curb arbitrary taxation. And the riders, of course, it's all about the taxation that was suspended. Below there, we see INEC files 6 count charges against Adamawa Rec. Diphtheria, and CDC confirms the number of diphtheria, about 798 cases, 80 deaths in 8 states, including FCT. Protesters storm EU office over election report, and CBN adjusts exchange rate on customs platform to 770.88 naira per dollar. And let's not forget, Twitter threatens to sue Meta over Threads app. Tinubu joins as new app gets over 30 million users. Now, this are some of the stories on the leadership, and these are the stories that we'll be able to take. Right now, we'll head on to the discussion. And, of course, person joining us is by the name Nuruddin, who is the, sorry, I beg your pardon.
Nuruddin Abdullah.
Yes. Nuruddin Abdullah, yes.
And he's the editor of 21st Century Chronicles. Good morning, and thank you so much for always taking time out to be here on Fridays.
Thank you.
Anytime you're not here, the show doesn't actually go the same, and that's the truth.
All right, Mr. Nuruddin Abdullah, let's start with, Tinubu suspends the 5% telecom vehicle import taxes and others. And from the buzz on social media, the first thing we get to understand is that Nigerians, or some Nigerians, don't really understand what this means. So please, can you enlighten us on that?
I think maybe you said social media, so, they just read the headlines and forget about it. But, they say the devil is in the details. It suspense. If you listen to the presidential ad yesterday, particularly Chief Dela Lake, the spokesperson, as well as even the revenue advisor to the president, it's suspension just to comply with the national tax policy, nothing else. When Buhari, as usual with the Buhari's way of doing things, he does things at the last minute. So, most of these taxes, they have been on the pipeline, but he refused to implement them until the last minute, that he slammed everything before he left for the road in London. But what Tinubu is saying now is this. We have a national tax policy that says that any variation, you don't reduce tax, you always increase it. So there is that window of minimum of 90 days to allow companies, firms, and what have you, adjust. But that was not given, particularly on the telecom tax, as well as the import cars are import tax by customs. Yeah. These are the two fundamental ones. And you remember when that telecom tax was imposed, there was back and forth between the Ministry of Digital Economy, the Finance, and what have you, you understand. As well as the Hamid Ali's vehicles. So fundamentally, these taxes, they said that, like Chief Alake said yesterday, they were taking effect retroactively. So what President Tinubu did is to comply with the national tax policy before it comes in full force. That is it. So when you're talking about, for the social media guys, if it is celebration, then their celebration will be short-lived very soon. Because it's a reality, there are things that need to be taxed, the government needs money, and you had borrowing. So there are so many, the President Tinubu apparently, he has an advisor on revenue. Buhari has an advisor on economy, but he just even warehoused it on the minister and vice president office. But Tinubu has an advisor on the revenue. He has an advisor on monetary policy. So he really means business. He's expanding the tax net. Park and Pay is back in Abuja, right?
Yeah.
So that, people that don't need to come to their cars to the office and be disturbing the peace of the street, should be keeping them at home. Or you go wherever, places where you can trek or use Uber or Bolt.
Yeah.
You carry your vehicle, go, and you'll be looking for, now, wherever you are.
All right,
so that's the social media people.
I'm sure they would appreciate that.
Yeah. All right, so one of the writers on that particular story talks about, the orders moderating inflation. And this is according to MAN and, other, organizations. So how is that supposed to happen? How will that happen?
One way, what you look at it this way, there are some policies implemented by this administration that people are complaining. The president removed fuel subsidy. And you all know the impact it is having on almost every sector of the economy. Is it transport? Is it food prices and what have you? The second thing is look at the education sector. He doesn't want to have that ASU problem. 7 months, 9 months, you know, and what have you. So he introduced education loan, but I don't know how many people can comply with that stringent and get it. But what does that mean? It means that tuition has been removed. Universities now are at liberty to fix their school fees, and you saw it coming. So Biro, where you are spending 30K, is about now 110. For medical sciences, it's almost 1/7, which was traditionally 50, 30, and what have you. So, and you know the impact, you know the hula balo about it. So, you know, they politically came with this to serve as maybe as a teaser, particularly to the social media
family, yeah.
Family and what have you, particularly that telecom tax, you know, what have you, and what have you. But the reality is this: the government needs money to fund the infrastructure, hospitals, and other things. And you don't want government to borrow. Oh, to a certain extent, are we even credit worthy? So you have to expand the tax nets. Look at it. Part of the story is this: there are even Buhari has approved it, and the implementation is even ongoing. Rising the taxes of tobacco and alcoholic beverages, which is a very good one. I remember was it during Clinton, they jack up the taxes of these people. You know, saying that no, we have to fund the health sector because these things have a direct or indirect connect, you know, with the health of the people. So yeah, we are jacking up the tax so that, you know, we'll fund the health sector. So that's exactly what.
And they actually, you know, other people or private sector actually demanding for more, you know, waivers, you know, from the president to suspend more taxes.
The problem is
especially
this.
Electricity and food.
So you look at, I didn't even mention electricity. You understand? But the reality is this. Waiver in the history of Nigeria has always been a thorny issue that has been compromised by those executing it. Take the subsidy regime, for instance. The tax waivers, you know, people, during Obasanjo, Eradua, even Jonathan regime, I remember during Okonjo-Iweala, people were getting forex at that time and be importing their personal furniture. If your daughter is getting married, you'll get the waiver from the CBN because you are a big man or a big woman, and you'll go and import all the furniture from either Italy, France, or China. So waivers are always subject to abuse. But there is a way, Tinubu is economically literate. So there are ways they can do it, but not the way people just want it. You understand? Or some people will even get waiver and be importing their very expensive wines and what have you. That has to stop.
You know, Nigerians, there's always the complaint of there's not enough being done by the government. And there is this notion that we tend to get it easy when it comes to tax, because we see the more advanced world where you have to pay tax for everything at every stage of life. So Nigerians, are we ready for that stage?
We are. And you know, it is only when we pay tax that we should have the enough liberty and commitment to hold our leaders accountable. In the UK, France, whatever, that's the only thing they rely on. They don't have oil. They say taxpayers' money. So by the time we do that, then maybe this issue of holding our leaders accountable from the grassroots level, the local government level, to the state level, and even the federal level, then maybe we'll start. What if you, look at this, just take this pack and pay stuff. People will just go, they'll park anyhow, block the streets, and what if you, unnecessarily. But you know now, if you are paying, you'll be cautious. When they introduce prepaid meter, there are areas you'll go now, you'll think that there is no electricity. Whereas there is. But people are moderating it.
Of course.
People who on their bathroom heaters 247 now are moderating it because they have been paid. It's no longer that postpaid whatever. So that culture, we have to imbibe that culture. When we go to these countries, we appreciate, we take pictures and what have you. Yeah, UK and what have you. But we have to start somewhere.
Okay, now there's this very interesting story. That's the lead story on a Blueprint newspaper talking about the National Population Census. So far, they've actually spent 200 billion naira to prepare for census that has actually not happened yet. And they're actually saying here that they need an additional 225.2 billion naira for the census to happen. Let's share your thoughts on this.
Yes, you are just more concerned about the money. We are talking about almost 400 or something billion. Maybe by the time you even give the money, inflation, exchange regime will eat up into the data is why is it important? Because we need the data to plan. But unlike what many Nigerians think, they want the census to prove that yes, Hausa people are more populous than the Igbos, than the Bagis, or than the Yorubas. Whereas no, we need the data for planning socio-economic activities and what have you. But because of that mindset, is the Nigerian or African mindset, we want our ethnic group, we want our regional whatever, we want tango. There is no even religion on it, right? Even though it would have sparked a religious controversy. But fundamentally, what government needs this data is to plan for economic activities.
But don't you think the money, though, that they are demanding, it's becoming outrageous? Like,
considering that it hasn't even started yet, and they've been given like part of the money already.
No, the census has started, literally. Don't you know? You should remember that ad hoc staff were trained, machineries were imported.
Were they paid?
Consultants were paid.
There was a protest.
They even did mock-up census across the country. Don't forget, we have 774 local governments across 36 states and the federal capital. And we equally have donor funds. All these monies are not coming from the federal government. The United Nations is giving, and what if, just to ensure that, yeah, we have a very credible census head count. Not for people from Dashan area to say, that, oh no, we are the most populous. Or not people from my area. We told them that we don't pass. No. Just for economic planning.
So they should be given whatever they demand?
Yeah,
no, sure, with accountability, yes.
So they said
after all that, dealing with President Tinubu,
546.7 billion naira is what they need to.
You are just.
No, I'm just trying to,
Yeah, you hit the nail by the.
No, but like I said, the data is very important. It is only the last time we had was 2006. Obasanjo's. This thing should be done after every 10 years. We don't even know how many we are. Maybe it is even after this done, the federal government will decide, oh, we are giving back too much. We need to apply the brakes. So people need to zip up. Government need to, let's say, allocate more money on family planning consumables. Who knows?
Is there any option than this national population census? Like, say, there are other countries that we see, from birth you've been registered from the hospital, and when there is
Have your
death,
social security
exactly,
number.
and when there is death, you go back, your family goes back and register. It's an easy way to, without spending much money like this.
We're looking at our cultural differences. When people go to the cemetery to bury their loved one, and you ask them about the name and what have you, you're looking for trouble. So, but if we get it right this time around, particularly when we get a credible head count, the Igbos are not dragging down, no, they are being shortchanged, the Yorubas, or the Hausas and what have you.
Exactly.
Maybe when we have a credible census that is credible, and when something is credible, people know.
Well, sadly, time is actually not on our side right now. We have to go. A very interesting conversation
Indeed.
here. Thank you so much, Nuruddin Abdullah, for joining us.
My pleasure.